learners. Welcome to our session today. A very beautiful session again that we are meeting for continuation of what we started earlier on. Recall in our previous class we had looked at the steps of preparing our bank reconciliation statements. We also went ahead and looked at the formats of preparing this. And we agreed that we will be having two formats of preparing our bank reconciliation statement. So the format that you're going to choose that will be upon you, the one that you feel you are very comfortable with. So in our session today, as I mentioned earlier on, we'll be looking at a question which was tested in April 2022. That is CPA Financial Accounting, April 2022, question number 5C. And this is a question that we're going to have here. I'm going to pin it in our video so that we use it to work out our concepts here. That is the question Mwalimu has shared it on our screen. If possible, you can take a screenshot of the question so that we go together. And these are what we are told, that on 30th September 2021, the cash book bank column of legume traders showed a debit balance of 530,000. A debit balance of 530,000. That is bank column. Then we are told that on investigation, or rather 530, while the bank statement balance on the same date had a balance of 608,500. That is as per the bank statement. On investigation, the following discrepancies were discovered. Number one, we are told that a check received from a debtor for 92,000 and debited in the cash book was refunded by the bank stamped insufficient funds on 28th September 2021. So clearly, that is a dishonored check that I am given. That is a dishonored check that I am given. So dishonored check, initially, what happened is that I had recorded it as a debit. I had recorded it as an amount that I've received from our debtor. But unfortunately, the check was dishonored. So therefore, it was recorded in the bank, but it was not recorded in our cash book. So therefore, I'll have to record it in our cash book. And in this case, I'm going to return it as if we hadn't received that much. So therefore, we are going to credit our cash book account. We are going to credit our cash book account, which we'll be looking at it. Then, we also told note 2, a receipt from a debtor of 65,000 was entered as payment in the cash book. It was a receipt, but it was entered as a payment. So that is to say, allowed to record the correct where it was supposed to be recorded. Then at the same time, I am going to cancel. We are going to record cancellation of that payment, and as well as receiving the correct amount, which we'll be looking at it. Bank charges amounting to 9,500 were reflected in the bank statement. Remember, these are transactions that appeared in our bank statement, but they had not yet been recorded in our cash book. So it will be upon us to record that transaction in our cash book. Checks totaling to 299,000 had been issued to suppliers but not yet been presented to the bank for payment. The concept to do with unpresented checks. Note 5, a standing order placed for rent of 230 was effected in the bank as per the bank statement. But in this case, remember, standing order is a direct debit, which was done in the bank directly. And as financial, or rather as accountant, we didn't have that transaction. So therefore, allowed to record it in our cash book because it was not recorded in our cash book. Recall what we mentioned in the first case. Then note 6, we are told that checks amounting to 206,000 were received and debited in the cash book. These checks had not yet been credited into the bank statement. So we are talking of the concept to do with what? uncredited checks. We are talking of the concept to do with uncredited checks. Note 7, we are told that a customer made a direct deposit of 187 to the business bank account. So these were direct credit, meaning that they were reflected in our bank, but they were not yet recorded in our cash book. So we'll have to do what? We'll have to record in our cash book. So my good students, required here, you're told to prepare number 1, an updated cash book as of 30th September 2021, as well as bank reconciliation statement as of 30th September 2021. Recall what Mwalimu mentioned when we started. Steps in preparing our bank reconciliation. The first thing that will be required to do is to prepare our updated cash book, where in that case we're also going to consider the errors that were made and they were not, we're going to correct the errors that were made in our cash book, accounts. So, given such a question, again, you should just smile, because now you have everything that we had talked about earlier on. So, looking at this point, this is how we are going to work it out. You'll find that such questions will always be very, very easy for us if at all we are able to understand, the whole concept. And that's why I started from scratch by looking at all the notes coming to the question itself. So this is what you are going to do. The name of this company was we're given Legume Traders. So I need to prepare our cash book. So we need to prepare Legume Traders. Updated cash book. Updated cash book as at 30th September, 2021. As at 30th September 2021. We need to prepare our updated cash book. So our currency. So at this point, I know, my good students, you are very familiar with our cash book. So it will just be very easy for us to put our figures directly. We start with the first data, where we are told that in this case you are asked, or rather in this case you are told that look at note 1, statement number 1. On 30th September, the cash book bank column of Legume Traders showed a debit balance of 530,000. So I'm having balance brought down here. We are having balance brought down, a figure of how much? 530,000. That is what I'm given. 530,000. Okay? Proceed to note 2. Or rather on the investigation. On investigation, the following discrepancies were discovered. Number 1, discrepancy, we are told that a check received from a debtor of 92,000 and debited in the cash book was refunded by the bank stamped insufficient funds. So I'm having a dishonored check, right? We're having a dishonored check. This is what happened. When our debtor paid, we recorded it as if we have received it. Remember the concept of what we talked about? Anytime you're talking of receipt in our cash book, in that case, is going to be debited. So in this case, you're assuming that the first instant, that check was debited here. That is why we had taken it to the bank. But taking this amount to the bank, this check was not credited because our client, our customer had insufficient fund. So the check is going to be returned in the business. And therefore, to correct this, it as if there is no transaction that has taken place. I've not yet received this amount from our debtor. So therefore, we are going to do what? We are going to credit that amount. So basically explaining it literally, in this case, we are saying that we had received this amount earlier on, and that's why that amount was recorded here. We had received this amount of 92,000. That check was initially recorded here, 92,000. But because our client did not have a sufficient fund, this check was returned to us. And therefore, I need to cancel whatever that I had recorded it earlier on. So we are going to have dishonored checks. Dishonored checks of how much? 92,000. And in this case, I'm not going to have this one. I'll just show you this one to show you the whole concept. So you'll find that this will cancel with this. So that is to say, as at the end of the day, you'll as if there is no transaction that has taken place. So therefore, dishonored checks, we are going to credit in our cash book account. Note 2. A receipt from a debtor of 65,000 was entered as a payment in the cash book. And I want you guys to understand this concept clearly. I'm having a receipt of how much? 65,000. This receipt initially was recorded and it was wrong. A receipt from a debtor of 65,000 was recorded as a payment in the cash book. This receipt was recorded here. Actually, let me have it with this pen. This receipt was recorded here, 65,000. But it was not supposed to be recorded there because it was a receipt. So the first entry that we need to do is to cancel that amount, which in this case I'm having aspect of receipt. I'm talking of aspect of this payment error, or rather receipt from a debtor, receipt error. So you're talking of kind of receipt error. So I'm having a receipt which was erroneously recorded, misposted, receipt misposted, receipt misposted. So in this case, first thing we are saying that the first transaction my good students, you're going to record the 65,000 to cancel the error so that our account will be 0. Then I'm going to record the correct amount now, which was supposed to be 65,000. So in total, we can agree that receipt misposted here, I'll be having a figure of how much? 130,000. Why are we having 130? We're having 130 simply because the first 65 that I'm going to record will be to cancel. This error that was made. Then the second transaction is now to record the correct transaction where it was supposed to be recorded. And that's why I'm having here 65 again. So in reality, this account of ours, it is as if I'll be having a receipt of how much? 65,000. Because in accounts, we can't just cancel, right? You can't just cancel. In that case, it will appear in your audit trail as if you can't delete. Don't delete transaction. In this case, you have to correct it with the double entry concept. So that's why you're saying at this point, I'm going to cancel it by recording that amount to cancel the 65. Then we record the correct amount, which was now 65,000. That's why you'll be having 130,000 there. So I'm going to have receipt misposted. I'm going to have 130,000 at that point. I believe that you have gotten the concept clearly, because I really want us to get the concept here clearly. Proceed to note 3. Bank charges amounting to 9,500 were reflected in the bank statement only. So if they were reflected in the bank statement only, therefore, what are we going to do? I'm going to record it in our cash book here. So bank charges. Bank charges. A figure of how much? 9,500. 9,500. Proceed to the next note, note 4. Checks totaling to 299,000 had been issued to suppliers but not yet been presented to the bank for payment. So mark that as unpresented checks, which we are going to look at it. Then note 5. A standing order placed for rent of 230,000 was effected in the bank as per the bank statement. Remember, these are standing order. These are direct debits. It was already effected in our bank statement. So we are also supposed to record it where? In our cash book account. So therefore, I'm going to have the standing order here. Standing order, which in this case is our rent. Standing order, a figure of how much? Standing order, I'm given a figure of 230,000. 230,000. That was our standing order. 230,000. So I'll be having it at that point. Then the next entry, what were we told? We are told that checks amounting to 206 were received and debited in the cash book. These checks had not yet been credited in the bank statement. So therefore, what are we going to do? We are going to credit these checks, and we are going to term them as what? As uncredited checks. But mark you me, it will not affect our bank statement, but rather, in this case, is going to affect what? Is going to affect our bank reconciliation statement. So we leave it at that point. Then note number 7, we are having a customer made a direct deposit of 187 into the business bank account. Believing that you're able to see that note. Note 7. So it was a direct deposit. Being a direct deposit, we know very well that it was not reflected in our cash book. When I've received my bank statement, it's when we realize that this amount was not recorded. So we need to record that. So I'm having a direct deposit from our customer. So we're having direct deposit. Direct deposit amounting to how much? 187,000. 187,000. So looking at that case, I'm not seeing if there's any other data that we've left out. Considering all our entries, now it will be our task to determine our actual balance carried down here. So we are going to have our updated cash book balance. What will we be having? Balance carried down, or if it is balance carried down on the other side, depending on where we'll be having it. Balance carried down, depending on where we'll be having our figures, right? So therefore, at that point, this is what we should be having. I'll take my calculator, also you with your calculator, we start working it out. First of all, where do we have, of course, larger figure, of course, I'm seeing is this side. So therefore, of course, our balance carried down will be on the credit side. So therefore, I'll be having 530,000 plus 130,000 plus 187,000 to give me a figure of 847,000. 847,000. We less 92,000. We less 9,500. We less 230,000 to give us a figure of 515,500. 515,500. So now this will be our updated cash book balance. 515,500. Kindly make sure that we are on the same page. So the moment we have determined that figure there, I want us now to come and prepare our bank reconciliation statement. The good thing is that already we had it here. I'm not going to raise that format. Whatever that Mwalimu is going to do, I'm going to change the title of this bank reconciliation statement of ours, and I'm having it as Legume Traders. I'm having it as Legume traders, legume traders. This is for the month of September 2021. September 2021. So that is what we are going to have. I'm not going to raise that format. So once we have that case, we come and determine this figure here. Balance at bank as per the updated cash book. What have we determined? This is a figure that we've seen, 515,500. So I'm going to have it here, 515,000. So I'm going to have 515,500. We add unpresented checks. In our question, my good students, did you have any unpresented checks? I want us to go to note number, that was note number 4. Checks totaling to 999,000 had been issued to suppliers but not yet been presented to the bank for payment. So you're talking of unpresented checks of how much? 299,000. So unpresented checks, I'm having it here, 299,000. 299,000. We didn't have any errors that I've seen, so therefore I won't be having any errors. So therefore I'm having 299,000 here, 299,000. So if we add it with 515, how much will we be having? I'd be having 200, and I'd be having, of course, the figure which is 515,500 plus 299,000 to give me a figure of 814,500. 814,500. The next thing to do is to identify if at all we had any uncredited checks. And my good students, we had uncredited checks. If we proceed to note number 6, check note 6, checks amounting to 206,000 were received and debited in the cash book. These checks had not yet been credited to the bank statement. So we are talking of uncredited checks of how much? 206,000. So uncredited checks, 206,000. The figure that I'm having here, 206,000. 206,000. We didn't have any errors that we've seen, so therefore here I'm not going to have any errors. So now confidently I can remove the question because I think we are done with that. So at this point I'm having 206,000. So that is to say, at this point I don't have anything, I don't have any figure here, I don't have any figure here. So we are talking of 206,000 total here. 206,000. 206,000. I'll be having it at that point which you're supposed to do or to deduct. So that as at the end of the day, my good students, what will you be having as balance at bank as per the bank statement, or rather as per the bank balance? In that case, I should be talking of 814,500 with less 206,000 to give me a figure of how much? 608,500. I'm getting 608,500. 608,500. And how much were we given? If you can check your question, the first case, this is our question. How much were we given, my good students? Look at that case, the first statement where we are told that on 30th September 2021, the cash book bank column of Legime showed a debit balance of 530, while the bank statement balance on the same date had a balance of 608,500. And that is exactly the figure, my good students, that you are getting here, 608,500. That's exactly the same figure that we are getting. So that is to say, we've done our reconciliation correctly, and that's how you're arriving at the balance as per the bank statement. The same concept normally applies practically. Whenever you're preparing your bank reconciliation statement using these accounting softwares available like QuickBooks, you'll find that you will be required to have this knowledge, to know what are you supposed to take where, comparing practically your bank statement and your cash book, so that as at the end of the day, you should be very, very good at. And nowadays we have M-Pesa statements where you're having pay bills. So you withdraw amount directly from your pay bill to your bank statement. So in that case, that is also very key for you to consider the aspect of M-Pesa statements, the aspect of the bank statement, and whatever that you're recording in your cash statement. So that is very vital that we have this knowledge. And as I had mentioned earlier on, as we will be kind of marking and understanding the concept from scratch here, doing it practically, we'll be in a very good position by the time we are clearing this, by the time we are clearing our course. So to that point, guys, thank you so much, and let us meet in our next session whereby you're going to handle another question for bank reconciliation. Thank you, and have a lovely time.